Have you ever heard of a football stadium named after a Heisman Trophy winner in Japan? Well, join us as we unearth the fascinating story of the other Nile Kinnick Stadium with football archaeology's Timothy P. Brown. Gridiron history takes an unprecedented turn, revealing a unique connection between American football and the Japanese culture. You won't believe this, and it's all coming up with Tim in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history, and welcome to another Tuesday, and we call it FootballArchaeology.com Day here, as Timothy B. Brown of Football Archaeology joins us each and every Tuesday to tell us about another one of his great little aspects in history. Tim, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Aaron, konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Oh, okay. I know where you're coming from with that word, but it really caught me off guard on that one. I wasn't expecting the Asian words coming out there. That's Asian. It's like Japanese,
That's Japanese.
right?
Yeah,
Okay,
Japanese
yeah,
for
right.
hello, basically.
Right. Okay. Well, it was a stretch tonight, folks, but it is a segue into Tim's tidbit that he wrote recently, titled "The First Nile Kinnick Stadium." Now, Tim, what can you tell us about this story?
Yeah, so and just as we speak, my oldest son he's visiting Mount Fuji right now. He's on a vacation in Japan, having a great time. So um anyways, really cool country. Um though we didn't think so back in, say, 1940. And uh so Nile Kinnick was he played football at Iowa, and he was a Heisman Trophy winner in 1939. So, just an absolute, fabulous player, multidimensional, kind of, halfback or running back, like, a lot of the guys were back then who were stars. But, due to the war, he ended up becoming a fighter pilot. And he was in a training, doing a training flight off the USS Lexington, so an aircraft carrier. And something happened to this plane. He had to ditch it, and basically they never found him. So the assumption either is knocked out or trapped in the plane because it sank, and they weren't able to save him. So and that was in 1943. In 1945, after the war had ended, the U.S. had basically took over Japan in terms of occupation army of Japan. And that fall, the student body at Iowa voted to rename, I think it was just called Iowa Stadium at the time. They wanted to rename it in his honor. And the school was hesitant to do so. They kind of felt like, there had been a lot of both athletes and just, students, faculty members, et cetera, that died in the war. And so it was like, why isolate him? And there were a lot of schools, especially after World War I, that had just Memorial Stadium. I mean, there's a boatload of them out there. So they left the name as is until 1972, and that's when they finally, named it after Nile. However, and exactly why this happened, I'm not sure, but in 1946 or 47, the U.S. basically, in the occupation army, they took over the Meiji Stadium in Tokyo. So it was an athletic field, running track, etc. And they took it over to allow, servicemen to work out there. They had all kinds of service football teams, different bases, battalions, whatever level it was. And they held track meets there. And then they also, the Japanese civilians could use it at times as well. But at the point that they took it over, they decided to rename it, and they named it in Kinnick's honor. So it was, Nile Kinnick Stadium. And that stayed in place. Every New Year's Day, they always had a big, they called it the Rice Bowl, and it was for the championship, the service championship of at least for Japan. They may have even brought teams in from like Korea or elsewhere at times. Um, but so that was kind of it was the big place for athletic events in Japan. And I wasn't able to track any like famous players who played there. There probably there had to be some, but for sure Red Blake and two of his and several of his assistants, but including uh, uh, Vince Lombardi and Murray Warmoth, who was longtime Minnesota coach. They were both assistants of Blake at West Point, you know, at the time. So they showed up in like 48, 49 and gave football clinics for the local coaches and things like that. Um, and then so the stadium had been built. It was intended to be used for the 1940 Olympics, which had been awarded to Japan, but that didn't happen due to them invading Manchuria, the outbreak of the war in Europe, and then the but so then they tore the thing down. Like the U.S. gave it back to them and like or gave back control in like 53, and then they used the same site to build the stadium for the 1956 Olympics, which were and did end up being held in Tokyo. So, anyways, it's kind of a whether there was some kind of an Iowa alum who was a mucky muck in the special services group that kind of ran the athletics. I don't know, because I never found anything identifying why they chose him, but they did, and so nice honor, and then I think it's a good thing that he's Iowa has since renamed their stadium in his name as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, great story and great player. I mean, it's excellent. There, like you said, there's many great athletes and great people that perished in that war. It was devastating
Yeah,
to both sides. The good guys and the bad guys.
yeah,
And but to have this gentleman, that probably the timing of him winning the Heisman, which right, the war, we're in the war in 43, and he wins the Heisman.
well, he won it in 39.
Or I'm sorry, 39.
Yeah,
Okay, he went at
yeah,
39, so right before
yeah,
the war,
yeah,
but still pretty close to the Warriors and very high profile name. When you read,
yeah,
that's going to be definitely something the newspaper is going to have as a headline, that this guy was
yeah,
killed in battle, as opposed to Darren Hayes getting killed in battle.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so I think that's a great thing, and we remember him for much more, and Iowa salutes him every time we watch a home game, or
yeah,
around the world when we watch their game. So very
yeah,
very cool. So, and it's a good thing they named it in Japan too. That's kind of cool too.
yeah,
So
yeah. Kind of
yes,
cool. Just neat.
yeah, that definitely is. And you have some really interesting, sort of off the beaten path gridiron stories that you love to share on your website and in social media. And maybe you could share with the listeners how they can take in some of these.
Yep. My site is footballarchaeology.com. Just type it in, go there, and you can subscribe. And if you subscribe, you'll get an email every time that I post a new story. But you also have the option to just follow me on Substack, and you can use the Substack app to follow me and read the stuff. But you can also just bookmark it, or follow me on Blue Sky, kind of whatever. Um, and I use the name Football Archaeology there too. So kind of whatever floats your boat.
All right. Well, Tim, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge and the stories that you have on your site with us each Tuesday. And we'd love to talk to you again next Tuesday.
Very good.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.